The atmosphere on board the Zolorian flagship, the Cynosure, was a blend of tense anticipation and meticulous preparation. They were hovering discreetly within Earth's exosphere, their presence cloaked by advanced stealth technology. Captain Tresk scanned the myriad of screens and data feeds with keen, bright eyes that missed nothing. Begin the observation protocol. Focus on their military installations first, he commanded in his crisp, authoritative tone. As the officers complied, holographic displays lit up with streams of data, translating the Earth's communications and monitoring military movements with precision. Earth, with its rich cultures and perplexing social structures, presented a unique case study for the Zolorians. Their society was one of order and clear hierarchies, where every individual knew their place and their duties. The concept of command was sacred and rigidly defined in Zolorian culture. The first contact was not to make their presence known to humans but to understand them from a distance. We need to fully grasp their command chains and societal ranks, Tresk explained to his assembly. If we are to engage with them, we must understand the nuances of their leadership. Meanwhile, on Earth, at a sprawling military base in the United States, General Harmon was overseeing a routine training drill. The soldiers, unaware of the extraterrestrial eyes upon them, executed a series of tactical maneuvers. Through the high-powered lenses of Zolorian scanners, the scene was transmitted back to the Cynosure with incredible detail. Lieutenant Kyra, the Zolorian anthropologist, took notes on the interactions. It appears that their military hierarchy is similar to ours. Orders flow downward from the highest rank to the lowest, she observed, marking the behavior of a stern-faced officer directing his troops. However, their nonverbal cues are heavily nuanced and could indicate underlying protocols we are not familiar with. Back on the Cynosure, Captain Tresk convened a meeting with his top advisors in the strategy room. The walls were lined with screens displaying various aspects of human civilization, political gatherings, bustling city centers, and isolated communities. Our primary objective remains to understand how decisions are communicated in their military, Tresk reiterated. But keep an eye on civilian leadership dynamics as well. There may be overlap or unique distinctions that could be critical. The Zolorians were particularly intrigued by the formal ceremonies they observed, where military leaders adorned in decorated uniforms bestowed honors upon subordinates. These rituals are rich with symbolism and seem to reinforce loyalty and morale among their ranks, Kyra noted, integrating the footage into her comparative analysis report. As the days progressed, the Zolorians' understanding deepened. They tapped into Earth's digital communications, sifting through countless transmissions, decrypting codes, and languages with their superior technology. The linguistic diversity is astonishing, mentioned Syl, the communications officer, as he worked to adapt their translation algorithms. Captain Tresk watched Earth rotate slowly beneath them, a blue gem teeming with life and complexity. His thoughts were interrupted by an aide who approached with a tentative demeanor. "Captain, there is something unusual you might want to see. It's a different kind of gathering, not a military one. It seems to be recreational, yet it involves organized group activities." Intrigued, Tresk followed the aide to the observation deck where the new images were being displayed. It was a live feed from a stadium where a group of humans engaged in a complex, coordinated activity involving a spherical object. "They call it football, a competitive team sport," the aide supplied. "But the one directing the team is not a soldier. They refer to him as coach." Tresk observed as the coach shouted instructions, clapped, and sometimes communicated with just a look or a gesture, prompting swift, strategic responses from the team. This coach commands without apparent authority of rank, yet he is obeyed instantly, Tresk mused, his curiosity piqued. "Kyra, focus your next analysis on this phenomenon. There's more to their structures of command than we assumed. Prepare for a deeper investigation into their non-military leadership roles." As the Zolorian flagship continued its silent vigil over Earth, the crew prepared to delve into this new, unexpected aspect of human hierarchy. Unbeknownst to humanity, these observations would challenge the Zolorians' understanding of power and leadership, setting the stage for revelations that would reshape their approach to the mysterious inhabitants of Earth. The Zolorian flagship Cynosure remained in high orbit, a silent sentinel over the bustling activities of Earth below. Within its core, the observation decks were alight with activity, as analysts and officers alike delved deeper into the complexities of human society. Captain Tresk, his interest deeply piqued by the diverse forms of leadership observed, had expanded the scope of their mission to encompass both military and civilian sectors. Lieutenant Kyra, the ship's anthropologist, was at the forefront of this endeavor. She had set up a series of feeds displaying various forms of human engagements, political debates, business meetings, educational classes, and more. Each feed provided a window into the nuanced ways humans communicated authority and leadership. Notice the variations in demeanor and speech, Kyra pointed out to a group of junior officers. Unlike our structured commands, humans often rely on persuasion and influence. As the Zolorians observed, they noted the informal leaders who emerged in crises, individuals who commanded not through rank but through respect and experience. In one instance, a fire chief directed a complex rescue operation with a calm authority that seemed to emanate from his very being, rather than his uniform or title. Their leadership can be as much about emotional strength as tactical knowledge, Kyra noted, her voice filled with respect and fascination. Meanwhile, Captain Tresk was particularly interested in the political leaders. The Zolorians watched sessions of various governmental bodies, from the United Nations to smaller, local councils. The interplay of dialogue, negotiation, and sometimes confrontation offered a stark contrast to the Zolorian method of governance, which was based on consensus and strict adherence to protocol. They lead through words and often, it seems, through the power of their ideals, Tresk mused aloud. It's chaotic yet strangely effective. The team also turned their attention to the corporate world, where CEOs and managers dictated the flow of vast sums of money and resources with decisions that seemed swayed by market forces and invisible pressures that were foreign to the straightforward Zolorian economy. Syl, the communications officer, was tasked with deciphering business communications. Their leaders must adapt rapidly, shifting strategies to navigate market fluctuations and public opinion, he observed, his interface cluttered with real-time stock market feeds and corporate announcements. The cultural sector was not neglected. The Zolorians were intrigued by the influence of artists, writers, and filmmakers, individuals who could sway public opinion and emotional responses not through orders or directives but through creativity and vision. These cultural figures wield a form of power that's subtle yet profound, Kyra remarked as they watched a documentary on Earth's most influential artists. They shape societal norms and dreams. As the observations continued, the Zolorians began to gather at the end of each Earth Day to share insights and debate their findings. These debriefings became a crucial part of their mission, a time to synthesize the vast amount of information they were gathering. One evening, as they watched footage of a peaceful protest led by a charismatic young leader, a senior advisor, Zor, pointed out, their ability to mobilize and inspire without formal authority could teach us much about leadership beyond hierarchy. Kyra added, there's a recurring theme of charisma, emotion, and moral conviction in their leadership. It's less about commands and more about connecting and resonating with others on a personal level. These discussions often stretched into the ship's night cycles, with Tresk encouraging his crew to think beyond their structured views. We must understand the underlying principles of their influence. How do these leaders inspire loyalty? How do they motivate others to act without explicit commands? Zolorians felt both overwhelmed and enlightened by the complexities of human leadership. They had come seeking knowledge of a military structure but had discovered a mosaic of power dynamics far richer and more varied than their original scope. As they prepared to dive deeper into specific cases, the understanding they had gained so far promised to challenge their fundamental beliefs about leadership and power. The next phase of their mission would involve closer, more interactive studies, something Tresk knew would bring them even closer to the enigmatic species called humans. The days following the Zolorians' broad observations of Earth's leadership structures brought a shift in focus to less formalized centers of influence and command. The alien crew's interest in understanding varied forms of human guidance led them to a new, unexpected venue, a local community center hosting a high school basketball game. It was here that Captain Tresk and his team planned to deepen their study of an influential yet informal leader, the coach. Kyra was the first to suggest observing a sporting event more closely. Sports are a microcosm of larger societal dynamics, she explained during one of their strategy sessions. They involve leadership, teamwork, competition, and social interaction, all in one observable setting. As the Zalorian crew tuned into the event, their advanced technology allowed them to observe the interactions with clarity. They watched as the coach, a middle-aged man named Coach Simmons, interacted with his team. Unlike the military drills the Zalorians had observed, there were no shouted commands or rigid formations here. Instead, Coach Simmons used a blend of gestures, facial expressions, and brief huddles to communicate with his players. The Zalorians noted that despite his lack of military rank or formal authority, the coach's commands were met with immediate action. Players tuned into his subtle cues, a nod, a clap, a pointed finger, and reacted with precision. His authority seems to stem from a mutual respect and an understood but unspoken agreement between him and the players, Kyra noted, her eyes not leaving the screen as she recorded every detail. Captain Tresk, observing from a distance, was intrigued by the silent communication that flowed effortlessly between Coach Simmons and his team. There is an efficiency and simplicity, Tresk mused. He uses minimal words, yet his intentions are clearly understood. This is an art form, a dance of expressions and silent commands. The game provided a dynamic display of strategy and quick decisions, with Coach Simmons making adjustments on the fly, often under the pressure of the ticking clock and the opposing team's actions. The Zalorians were particularly interested in a timeout where Coach Simmons gathered his team around him, drawing diagrams on a board. Here, we see direct instruction, yet it's done collaboratively, Kyra observed. He's not just issuing orders, he's engaging his players in tactical planning. As the game progressed, the Zalorian sensors not only captured visual and auditory data but also physiological indicators from the players and the coach. His influence extends beyond the physical, Sil commented, pointing to the data showing elevated heart rates and adrenaline levels that spiked in sync with Coach Simmons' most animated moments. It appears that his emotional state directly affects his team. The Zalorians spent the remainder of the game analyzing these interactions, noting the emotional bonds and the implicit trust that seemed to empower the players. This coach shapes these young humans' behavior and performance through something deeper than formal authority, Tresk concluded. It's a blend of psychological influence, shared goals, and personal connection. After the game, as the team celebrated a narrow victory, the Zalorians observed the players' interactions with Coach Simmons. There were pats on the back, high fives, and an obvious affection and respect toward him. Look at the mutual respect and joy, Kyra pointed out. His leadership extends beyond the court. The evening's observations ended with the Zalorians reflecting on what they had witnessed. It was clear that the dynamics of leadership were vastly complex and nuanced in human society. The notion of command, so rigid in Zalorian culture, was far more fluid on Earth. Captain Tresk decided that their next step would be to apply some of these observational insights to their own interactions on the Cynosure. Perhaps we have something to learn from Coach Simmons' methods, he proposed. Let's experiment with nonverbal communication and emotional resonance within our own crew. As the Zalorian flagship continued its silent watch over Earth, its crew was slowly beginning to understand the intricate tapestry of human connection and leadership, a lesson in the power of the unspoken word that promised to reshape their mission and their approach to the mysterious planet below. After witnessing the subtle yet effective command style of Coach Simmons, Captain Tresk instructed his team to conduct a detailed analysis of nonverbal communication and emotional influence in leadership. Lieutenant Kyra spearheaded the project, utilizing the Zalorians' advanced technology to dissect and interpret the nuances of human interactions observed during the basketball game and other similar events. In the research lab aboard the Cynosure, Kyra and her team assembled vast amounts of data. They used sophisticated algorithms to parse body language, facial expressions, and even the physiological responses of the humans they observed. Our goal is to quantify the impact of nonverbal cues in leadership, Kyra explained as she adjusted the parameters on a complex model that predicted outcomes based on different communication styles. The team focused particularly on the timeout sessions led by Coach Simmons, analyzing how his gestures and expressions correlated with changes in the players' performances. Notice here, Kyra pointed to a series of graphs on the display, how the players' adrenaline levels seem to spike just after Simmons shows a confident smile or a firm nod. It's as if his confidence is directly fueling their resolve. As they delved deeper, the Zalorians discovered patterns that were previously invisible to them. They noted that the smallest of gestures, such as a subtle tilt of the head or a brief touch on a shoulder, could significantly alter the player's focus and execution of plays. Human leaders like Coach Simmons wield influence through empathy and emotional connection, something our command protocols have always overlooked, Kyra mused. Meanwhile, Captain Tresk was intrigued by the potential applications of these findings within the Zalorian command structure. Traditionally, Zalorian leaders used only verbal commands and strict discipline to maintain order. Tresk wondered if incorporating empathetic leadership could enhance efficiency and morale aboard the ship. Perhaps we need to integrate these human elements into our own leadership training, he pondered aloud during a briefing with his senior officers. The analysis extended beyond the basketball court. Kyra's team also studied various leaders in different contexts, politicians during debates, teachers in classrooms, and even parents interacting with their children in public settings. Each scenario provided further insights into the complex tapestry of human communication. Our findings suggest that human leaders are constantly adjusting their communication style based on their audience's emotional state and reaction, Kyra reported to the assembled crew. This adaptive approach is something our own leaders could learn from to better manage crew dynamics, especially during long missions. The research findings were compiled into a comprehensive report that included video clips, statistical analyses, and a set of proposed guidelines for incorporating nonverbal communication into Zalorian leadership practices. Kyra presented this report to Captain Tresk and the other high-ranking officers at a special session. This goes beyond mere communication, it's about connection, Kyra concluded. Coach Simmons and leaders like him connect on an emotional level, which seems to amplify their influence and effectiveness. Inspired by the findings, Captain Tresk authorized a pilot project aboard the Sci-Fi. A select group of officers was trained to use nonverbal cues and emotional empathy in their daily interactions. The project's results would be monitored and evaluated to see if such methods could be permanently integrated into Zalorian leadership protocols. As the Sci-Fi continued its silent orbit around Earth, the Zalorian crew began experimenting with their new knowledge. The ship itself became a laboratory for human-inspired leadership techniques. Initial reports were promising, with participants noting improved teamwork and increased morale. The potential for these human-inspired methods within our own ranks is exciting, Tresk announced in a ship-wide address. We are learning that leadership is not just about maintaining order but about fostering a connected, responsive, and adaptable crew. As the Zalorian flagship, Sci-Fi, continued its covert orbit around Earth, the crew members engaged in their newly adopted experimental leadership practices, inspired by their observations of human interactions. The shift in strategy was subtle yet profound, especially for a species as regimented as the Zalorians. Captain Tresk watched closely as his officers implemented these human-inspired leadership techniques. He noted how nonverbal communication seemed to bridge gaps between ranks, fostering a more collaborative atmosphere aboard the ship. The initial trials had shown promise, leading Tresk to consider more extensive adaptations. Report on the pilot project, Tresk commanded during a senior staff meeting. Lieutenant Kyra presented the latest data. There has been a measurable improvement in crew morale and efficiency, she began, displaying graphs and charts that illustrated a positive trend. Our adapted approach, using nonverbal cues and fostering emotional connections, has reduced conflicts and boosted cooperative efforts across departments. The feedback from the crew was overwhelmingly positive. One junior officer noted, the new methods have made senior officers more approachable and responsive, improving problem-solving on the deck. Encouraged by these results, Tresk convened a special committee to oversee the integration of these techniques into the core training programs for all officers. We need to rethink our strategies, not just in leadership but in all forms of our communication and operations, Tresk declared. The committee was tasked with developing a comprehensive plan to overhaul the traditional Zalorian leadership paradigm. Meanwhile, the Zalorians expanded their observations to other human activities that exemplified teamwork and leadership without formal authority. Emergency responders, film production crews, and orchestral conductors became subjects of keen interest. Each group offered unique insights into alternative forms of leadership and organization. Kyra and her team compiled detailed analyses of these groups. Emergency responders, particularly, show a remarkable ability to adapt quickly, often with minimal communication, she explained in a workshop designed to train Zalorian officers in these new insights. They rely heavily on a shared understanding and trust in each other's abilities, which is something we've been incorporating into our own practices. The adaptations went beyond mere imitation of human behavior. The Zalorians synthesized these observations with their cultural values and technological advantages, creating a hybrid model of leadership that was both innovative and respectful of their traditions. This model emphasized flexibility, empathy, and the importance of nonverbal cues in maintaining discipline and order. As these changes were implemented, debates and discussions flourished among the crew about the balance between traditional Zalorian structures and the new, human-inspired approaches. "We must be careful not to lose our identity in this adaptation," warned a senior advisor during one heated debate. "Our principles of order and hierarchy have served us well." Tresk acknowledged these concerns in a ship-wide address. "Our aim is not to discard our heritage but to enhance our ability to lead and cooperate more effectively. These changes are a reflection of our commitment to growth and excellence, drawing on the best practices we observe." The cultural shift within the cynosure was palpable. Training sessions now included role-playing scenarios inspired by human sports coaches and emergency scenarios, focusing on rapid decision-making and nonverbal communication skills. Officers practiced giving silent commands and using body language to convey urgency and direction. Kyra documented the ongoing changes, planning to publish a comprehensive report on the integration of human leadership styles into Zalorian culture. "This is not just an experiment, it's the beginning of a transformative journey for our society," she reflected in her log. Captain Tresk, ever the visionary, anticipated these trials with a sense of optimism. "We are on the cusp of a new era for our people," he stated, gazing out into the stars. "By learning from humanity, we are rediscovering ourselves and charting a course for a future where leadership transcends command and becomes a dance of minds and hearts." Aboard the Zalorian flagship Cynosure, a palpable sense of anticipation mixed with the routine hum of the spacecraft's operations. The crew, now well-versed in their newly adopted human-inspired leadership techniques, prepared for the upcoming War Games, an ambitious project designed to rigorously test the efficacy of these strategies against the traditional command structures. Captain Tresk surveyed the preparation from the command center, his eyes reflecting both the starlight and the soft glow of the data screens. "This will be a definitive moment for us," he told his executive officer. "It's an opportunity to validate our learnings and potentially reshape our leadership approach across the fleet." The War Games were structured to simulate a variety of emergency situations that a Zalorian vessel might encounter: asteroid fields requiring rapid navigation, surprise attacks from unknown foes, and rescue missions under hostile conditions. Two groups were formed, one adhering to traditional Zalorian command protocols, and the other employing the new, human-inspired methods. In the days leading up to the simulations, both teams engaged in intensive preparation. The traditional group, led by Commander Velk, drilled with precision, their movements and decisions swift and by the book. In contrast, the experimental group, led by Lieutenant Kyra, focused on nonverbal communication drills, emotional resilience training, and scenario-based problem-solving that emphasized flexibility. Kyra's team used mock drills to refine their understanding of silent cues and emotional feedback. They practiced maintaining calm under pressure and adapting quickly without waiting for explicit orders. "Remember, it's about trust and intuition as much as it is about strategy," Kyra coached her team, echoing the lessons drawn from their observations of humans like Coach Simmons. As the war games commenced, observers from various sectors of the Zalorian military were present, curious about the potential impact of the outcomes. The first scenario involved navigating through an artificially created asteroid field. Commander Velk's team performed admirably, executing commands with robotic precision. However, Kyra's team displayed remarkable adaptability, using nonverbal signals to alter their course fluidly and efficiently, responding to dynamic changes faster than the traditional group. The second scenario simulated a rescue operation on a damaged spacecraft with potential hazards on board. Here, the traditional group's rigid command structure proved less effective in the unpredictable environment, where quick adaptation was crucial. Kyra's team, utilizing their training in empathy and silent communication, quickly assessed the situation, divided tasks, and executed the rescue with a high degree of coordination and speed, outperforming their counterparts. After the simulations, an extensive debriefing took place. Data from the exercises was analyzed to understand decision-making processes, reaction times, and overall effectiveness. The results were telling. Kyra's team had not only met but exceeded the performance metrics of the traditional group in most scenarios. The data indicates a clear advantage in scenarios requiring quick adaptation and team cohesion, reported a senior analyst during the debrief. The human-inspired methods have fostered a more responsive and cohesive unit. Feedback sessions with the participants revealed a preference for the new methods among many of the younger officers, who appreciated the increased autonomy and trust. It feels more engaging to be part of a team where you're trusted to make decisions on the fly, one junior officer shared. However, some veteran members expressed reservations, finding it difficult to adjust to a less structured command environment. There's value in tradition and the clarity it brings, a seasoned commander noted, highlighting the ongoing need for balance. Encouraged by the success of the experimental group, Captain Tresk announced the gradual integration of these new leadership techniques across the fleet. We will begin with mixed method units, incorporating both traditional and new strategies to allow a smoother transition, he declared. As the Zalorian flagship Sci-Fi continued its orbit around Earth, the crew was abuzz with the successes of the recent war games and the implications for the future of their command structures. Captain Tresk stood before a gathering of the ship's senior officers and various dignitaries from the Zalorian military command, ready to address the results and chart the course ahead. Today marks a significant milestone in our journey, began Captain Tresk, his voice resonating through the assembly hall. The successful integration of human-inspired leadership techniques into our operations not only showcases our adaptability but also opens new avenues for enhancing our strategic operations and crew morale. The room was filled with nods of agreement and murmurs of approval. The data from the war games was compelling, showing clear benefits from the mixed method approach in adaptability, decision-making speed, and unit cohesion. We will implement these techniques across the fleet, starting with our exploratory and patrol divisions, Tresk announced. The new policy outlined a training regimen for officers, emphasizing nonverbal communication, emotional intelligence, and flexibility in command structures. These skills will be integrated into our existing training programs, ensuring that all levels of command are fluent in both traditional and new methods. Lieutenant Kyra took the stage to discuss the cultural shifts within the crew. Adopting these methods has not only improved our operational effectiveness but also enriched our internal culture, fostering a more inclusive and dynamic environment aboard the ship. She detailed the establishment of a cultural exchange and learning center aboard the Sci-Fi, where crew members could continue to learn about human cultures and other species' social structures. This center will ensure ongoing learning and adaptation, key to our growth as a species, Kyra explained. The integration of new leadership methods also spurred technological advancements. The Zalorians developed new communication tools that enhance the ability to convey nonverbal cues and emotional states between crew members, even in the isolation of personal quarters or during EVA missions. Our engineers have created what we call the Emotion Conveyance Interface, which will help in situations where verbal communication is not possible, the chief engineer explained during a technical showcase following the assembly. Demonstrations included tools that mimicked human facial expressions and body language, adapted for Zalorian physiology. Feedback sessions were held shipwide, where crew members could express their thoughts on the changes. Many younger officers were enthusiastic about the new methods, seeing them as a means to more meaningful engagements and responsibilities. However, some seasoned officers remained skeptical. While I see the benefits in certain scenarios, I hope we do not lose sight of the structure that has served us well, one veteran remarked. Captain Tresk addressed these concerns directly. Our core values of discipline and order remain intact. These new tools are just that, tools to make us better, he reassured. As the Cynosure prepared for its departure from Earth's orbit, Captain Tresk reflected on the mission's impact on his crew and their society. What we've learned from humanity will influence not just our military strategies but potentially our governance and social interactions, he mused in his log. This mission was marked by a ceremony celebrating the mutual understanding and unexpected learning between the two species. Earth's leaders, though unaware of their observers, had inadvertently contributed to a significant evolution in Zalorian society. As the Cynosure turned its bow towards the stars, setting a course for their next mission, the crew carried with them not just advanced knowledge of leadership but a new perspective on power, communication, and empathy. The Zalorians had learned that sometimes, the most profound command could come without a word, and the deepest respect could arise from a simple gesture. With these lessons embedded into their culture, they were not just better leaders but a more united community, ready to face whatever challenges the cosmos might throw their way.